Hello, everyone. This is Matt, your local friendly gamer, and today we had a Pokemon Presents presentation in celebration of Pokemon Day. This usually is when they like to have their presentation, and I think they also every now and then have something like towards the summer. Kind of like a holdover for when, all the E3 stuff used to happen. But yeah, I mean, since Pokemon likes to do their own presentations, they typically aren't the longest. I think this one was only anywhere between 12 to 13 minutes. And half of it was, the usual mobile game updates like Pokemon Go. They are doing a special event in celebration of the new animated series that's coming out. That is basically going to be the new, mainline anime series since they wrapped up the story for Ash Ketchum with the previous one. So I think they had a few Pokemon that they wanted to add in, and I think some of them are also wearing kind of special outfits. I know there's another one with a Pikachu with another special hat, and I think if you did something with either Sprigatito or Fuecoco, the grass and fire starters for Paldea, you get to get screen caps featuring the new protagonists for the new series. I think it's called Pokemon Horizons. So I'm sorry. And I think aside from that, Pokemon Unite's getting some new Pokemon. A few of the Paldea Mon are gonna be in there. There's gonna be some new trainer Pokemon selections for the Pokemon Masters, which I'm thinking about getting into, but I think when I was trying to level up some of the trainers when I last checked in on it, I accidentally max leveled one of them, and I didn't want to, so I have to figure out what to do with that one. I also haven't played Pokemon Unite in a while, and my Pokemon Go box is really full, so I probably need to drop more Pokemon off of Pokemon Home. And unfortunately, I don't think you can do anything with any Pokemon that have special hats or anything like that, and I caught a lot of them, so that's going to be interesting. But then afterwards, we got our two announcements of basically new. Oh yeah, and Pokemon Cafe Remix. I'm sorry, I almost forgot that one. There are some Paldeamon that are going to be featured in that as well. And then following that, we got two additional announcements. We got a new app for the Pokemon trading card game called Pokemon Trading Card Pocket, which I believe it's basically kind of a casual card collecting app that spans, the whole entirety of the Pokemon Trading Card Collection game. Whereas in Pokemon Trading Card Game Live, you could get the cards that are currently syndicated and part of the current competitive rule set. But once it moves to the new rule set, you can't play those cards anymore, and you gotta stick with the newer cards. But they usually try to keep the 5 or 6 or so most recent syndications and stuff like that. So you don't have to constantly change your deck along the way. Whereas this one is a lot more broader. From what it seems you can get any card that you want, and as long as I think you've set the game up when you actually want to play the trading card game. I think you can use any card you want, which is really nice. And I think it's also a good way to like separate Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket from Live and have those two kind of coexist with each other. So that way they don't like step on each other's toes. They also had some like additional neat little perks and stuff. Like one of the things that they featured was you have like this like kind of like dynamic like art mode where it's like you kind of like look at even like more stuff. It's like more interactive with the card and stuff. And I think they want to take advantage of like, you know, these aren't like the physical cards anymore, they're digital cards. So we want like, you know, more involvement with them, which is pretty cool. And you also, I think you get like, you know, a pack or two like a day that you can like open, and it's like, it's really nice. The thing that I still am kind of a little baffled with is why isn't this app and Live also coming to Switch? It's, like, I know not every mobile game that Pokemon comes out has to have a Switch one, has to have a Switch version, but when you have like so many other games, like, you know, you have Unite, you have Cafe Remix, and even though Pokemon Go, you know, isn't on the Switch, it has a lot of interactivity with other Switch games and apps like Pokemon Home, as well as the two Let's Go games. So I don't understand. And it also is kind of odd when like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, you can play that on PC, consoles, and mobile. So I don't understand the hesitation with that whatsoever. That's about my only sticking point with Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. And my continued sticking point with Pokemon Trading Card Game Live. It also is gonna stink a little bit if, you know, if I download it for, you know, an iPad and they still have like the vertical layout, phone layout, and it's just like, you know, it would be nice if they added in a horizontal mode, but since they didn't really show that in the preview footage, I'm going to assume they didn't put that in there, which, okay, whatever. I guess that's kind of my other sticking point. It's like, add in a darn horizontal mode, please. You know, the landscape mode. So that was kind of like the first of their two new announcements. The second of which is that we are indeed getting a new Pokemon Legends game. So I am really glad that they are deciding to keep that particular side series going and not just having Arceus be a one-off deal, because Arceus was really good. And I'm hoping that their latest Legends iteration is also really good. I mean, keep in mind, this is coming off of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and kind of how incredibly mixed that they were. But then again, Pokemon Legends Arceus came off of the incredibly mixed Pokemon Sword and Shield, and it still did well enough. I mean, I guess one of the things that kind of reassured me a little bit is that, one, they didn't announce any remakes to alongside it, which, given how not so well Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl ended up, I'm kind of glad to hear that. Because the last thing we need is another half-hearted remake. I mean, and I know people are starting to ask for Gen 5 already, but it's like, I don't know. I either would want them to like wait a few years before doing another remake, or at the very least, probably make a Gen 4 remake that's actually good. I know I say that, but I am planning on playing Shining Pearl to break up the main adventure and the DLC of expansion for Pokemon Violet. So, you know, I mean, you'll probably have a better idea of what I mean when I get around to playing that game. Now, as far as what they decided to focus on this time, we are going back to Kalos, which is good because Kalos is definitely like one of the most undeveloped regions in Pokemon, period. Mainly due to the fact that we only had X and Y, and instead of any subsequent game, like the the usual third game or going the sequel route like they did with Black and White 2, or I guess the ultimate retelling route they did with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. We only got X and Y. And that left a lot of gaping holes that really needed to be filled in, especially regarding with one of the legendary Pokemon that they featured there, Zygarde, which was supposed to be kind of like the balancing counterpart to Xerneas and Yveltal, which were the two legendaries featured in that game. The other thing is that this is actually taking a very interesting angle, because what we initially thought, especially since we only had Legends Arceus to go off of, we thought they were going to go a lot further back in the past than what they probably are actually doing. At least in terms of first impressions. So what they showed us was basically the entirety, the main premise of Pokemon Legends C-A. That's the one they're going with. I feel like that's not a working title. That's the actual title that they're going with. It's basically gonna take place as kind of the major hub, the major city in the game. Lumiose City, I think it is. It's gonna take place as that city is being developed, essentially. Now, whether or not there's already going to be like a city there, and it's going to be being built or like refurbished, or if this is just following like the entire city being built from the ground up, we won't know until we actually see more. And since the game isn't coming out until 2025, we have at least a year for like trailers to show up and all that. Sorry. So, yeah, they since it's like the initial reveal teaser and stuff, there isn't really a whole lot to go off of. So one of the major plot points of the original X and Y was that there was like this major war that went on like that went on 3,000 years ago. And that it ended by basically a king that kind of had a grudge against society, developed an ultimate weapon and ended the war instantly, but it caused a lot of collateral damage to both people and Pokemon. That he basically had to kind of live with the regret for like the rest of his life. And since he kind of also gained immortality, he basically had to wander around in kind of some self-imposed exile for all that time until the plot of the main game came about. Well, from what I gather from the teaser, it doesn't seem like it's going to involve any sort of war, and it's certainly not going to be 3,000 years in the past. That being said, though, especially because, there have been a couple of instances where Pokemon's shown that time travel does indeed exist. I have to wonder, especially if, the energy behind Mega Evolution is also making a return, since we're returning to Kalos, so Mega Evolutions are going to be available again. I wonder if there is going to be some sort of way to kind of showcase those events, or at least have a way for us to learn more about them. Because this definitely would be the game to do it. I mean, this kind of has to be the game to do it, especially because, we haven't had anything in regards to Kalos for, over a decade at this point, 11 to 12 years. So, if they want to take their chance to, explain more in detail regarding that sort of stuff, it really does have to be now. And especially because I think since there is a good chance that, we might also see, since it does seem like it's going to be kind of a more recent game in comparison to Legend Arceus, I do kind of have to wonder if we are going to see some characters that we have seen before, but in a new light, so to speak. So that would be the main professor of the game, which is Sycamore. That would also be, the champion that we faced at the end of the game, which would be Diantha, who is also an actress. And then there's also the main villain, so to speak, of the game, Lysander, who was not really a good, well-written villain. So, I mean, if there's kind of like if there needs to be like some sort of further character development to kind of help kind of smooth that over a little bit, that would also be very welcome. It could also be like, since we could also easily be like, several decades, before the event. So we might even see like, like their, a couple of generations, before them with characters that look relatively similar. Then, that could be the case as well. But yeah. The other thing too is that, again, since we're not exactly going into like the full-on, war thing, that would mean that we might not really see any regional variants this time around, especially for the fact that since it's probably going to be more recent, we're probably going to see something a little similar to, the Kalos roster that we are kind of familiar with. Which also kind of brings into mention, as far as the starters are concerned, we could just have, like, the standard 3 Kalos starters. We might even also have, the Kanto starters come up again, at some point or another. It'll be interesting to see what exactly they do with it, especially because, again, it does seem like they're taking, like, a more, even though it's still like past events of the game, they are still taking like a very more recent approach, as opposed to, we're just straight up not gonna, otherwise just straight up, they're basically kind of avoiding having the entire game being Pokemon going to war. So, which, I mean, I get it, especially because, Pokemon wants to try to keep things family friendly, yet still tried to insert a little bit in terms of heavier moments whenever they could, They managed to do that very well in Scarlet and Violet, so, the game could start off, with us, helping out with the urban development of Lumiose City, and then as we progress through the game, we then start finding out, like, new details about the war 3,000 years ago, and maybe see, like, related cutscenes, maybe have some time travel to where we can, like, actually interact with everything that was going on back then or something. There's a lot of interesting angles that they could go about this. Now, it will also be very interesting to see just how they handle us, collecting Pokemon, battling with Pokemon, and stuff like that. Again, because right now the focus that they kind of gave us to out of the gate is developing a city. Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how that would, like, kind of work. I mean, that could lead its way into new gameplay styles, but also since, one, it's part of a series where, even though it's part of a side series where, yes, the main focus may not exactly be, catching Pokemon so that you can rise to the ranks and become a champion level trainer, but we will have to collect Pokemon. We will have to battle with them at some point. And we might also have to, like, keep track of a Pokedex. So that'll be interesting to see how they work that in, or at the very least find a way to, have some sort of kind of alternative that makes sense in a way. So that will be interesting. But again, it's one of those things where it's like I'm in purely speculative mode at the moment, so it's like I have to kind of figure out how they would probably go about this. It will also be interesting to see just what exactly, as far as battle and travel mechanics are set to return. Like, obviously, we're probably going to be traveling with Pokemon, using like Pokemon ride methods. But then are we going to kind of go for like kind of like the semi kind of Monster Hunter approach, as we did with Pokemon Legends Arceus, or is there going to be like some other way to kind of go about things? So it will definitely be interesting to see that for sure. But I think after Pokemon Legends Z dash, man, it's gonna be interesting trying to basically Pokemon Legends ZA. It will be interesting to see what they go about doing this, but then afterwards, especially because, you know, we're getting like a lot of rumors regarding a Switch successor. I think at this point, after that game is done and released, you know, aside from, you know, obviously focusing on the next console that Nintendo's gonna, you know, release and have games ready for that, I would like them to focus on, you know, basically some things that have been kind of not on their radar. Like, I know as far as like Pokemon Go, I think Niantic is gonna be mostly responsible for what Pokemon gets in there. I think it's high time that Galar gets into Pokemon Go. And then from there, it's with the other titles. I mean, at least get one of the trading card games over to the Switch or the next platform. Although if it's backwards compatible, it wouldn't be too far-fetched for that to be on both the Switch and the successor. So find some way to get the older games onto newer platforms, please. Like, come on, you know, it's like, you know, you get on you know, on emulators and fan games case on all the time, but how else are people going to play, you know, the original Generation 1, the original Generation 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, not to mention the remakes of 1, 2, and 3, you know, and there's also a bunch of other side games that you're not having on the NSO for whatever reason. So it's like, there really needs to be a better way. And if you have to, like, you know, do like a remake of all of them, you know, have at least a better strategy than what you did for Generation 4. And I mean, I'm not even sure if you have like any sort of strategy as far as making Let's Go versions, although I guess, you know, a lot of people probably kind of felt like it's better off leaving it at the first generation or so. But yeah, find some way to get the other generations on there, you know. I mean, I'm not necessarily so sure that, you know, every region needs to have a Legends game, but, you know, even though it is nice, you know, it is nice that it's, you know, Sinnoh's not the only one that got it, you know, Kalos is getting it too, and Kalos really needed it. But yeah, I mean, you need to find some way to get, like, the older games on there, because, you know, otherwise people are going to emulate, you know? People are not going to, you know, try to scour and spend extra amount of money to find a working 3DS and to find working DS or working Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, and then hopefully find a working copy of the generation they want to play. No, you know... Fortunately, emulation is the easier option. So, you know, if people want to play older games, you gotta give them that option, you know. And there's also plenty of side games people would like to see come back. You know, I know people want to see a remaster or remake of the Coliseum and XD games. You know, People want to see, people want to see more of what you did with the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon remake. People want to see more of like, like other side games like, the Pokemon Ranger series or the Poke Park series, Gotta give people options, and I mean, it's like, I know you also like to focus on like stuff for the mobile app. Well, I mean, if, sometimes if you need to do it through like another mobile app, do it through another mobile app, And I understand that, they only have so many people, but it's like, when you're the largest franchise in the world, you clearly have enough money to hire more people to do the sort of things that need to be done for what people are requesting, it's like it's like at that point, do you really blame for people looking at other options that they feel like Pokemon isn't delivering on them? It's why Pal World hit it off so well in its opening weeks. It's just something that I would like for them to consider. But I mean, for the meantime, at least we have a new Legends games to look forward to. At least they're actually gonna not hopefully rush it out. They're at least waiting until 2025. So it's at least a year away. And I hope that when that game is done, they don't immediately rush out Generation 10. I really hope that they've actually learned the lesson this time, but only time will tell. I hope the fact that the Paldean animated the animated series set in Paldea isn't even starting until like March 7th on Netflix. So hopefully that'll take at least a good run of like a couple of years or so, and then hopefully that gives enough of a buffer for the newer games and promptly all of the newer merchandise and all that comes with it. So fingers crossed for that. So now as far as what I'm doing, well, I don't know if it's actually going to be like stormy out or anything tonight, so kind of as a bit of a precaution, I'm not really going to be streaming or anything on Pokemon Day. I mean, I already had a little bit of a freak out when I was trying to do side order for Splatoon 3 and have the computer crash like midstream. So I don't really want to take my chances with a potential power outage, unfortunately. So that's going to have to be a no. And before I even go back to Pokemon Violet, I want to do the first impressions of games that I've been that I just recently got and been holding off because I've been wanting to do a stream of sorts with those games. I also have to kind of, keep track of like my storage in certain devices, maybe need to do some additional media management here and there. I did some backups the last couple of days, so hopefully that'll help clear some space for future streams. Because, I want to take a look at Super Mario RPG, Persona 5 Tactica, and I just recently got a physical copy of Street Fighter 6 for the PS4, so hopefully after those 3 games, I'll finally head back to Pokemon Violet. Because, I definitely want to get to like the point where I'm gonna pause, before the summertime, if at all possible. So that's kind of what's up with me for the moment. But in the meantime, as far as any sort of Pokemon game, we're just gonna have to wait and see. And hopefully, Game Freak can hopefully come back from this little rut that they've kind of been into. I mean, not helping with the fact with how, the Pokemon Company doesn't seem like, they've learned anything. They probably only learned what they absolutely needed to learn, as far as, like, in regards to their bottom line and stuff, so... And I will admit, Pal World is probably making them sweat a little bit, especially if they can't really find any reason to take any sort of legal action against them, which, I mean, seems like they're going to try, but I not sure how successful they will as far as that's concerned. So, but that's a whole other discussion that I try to be in, and was kind of a little foolish in it. So I'm not gonna try to push that particular discussion farther than I need to. But with all of that said, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful day. Maybe pick up a Pokemon game you enjoy if you are a fan. And, have a good time and take care.